How's it going, mate? Today I'm going to be answering another one of your most asked questions. I still constantly get asked in private messages and in comments, what is this lure, what is this reel, all that stuff. So a very common one that I've been getting a lot lately, and I haven't made a film about it for a while, is what lures have I been using? This coincides with a very special gift from Malosi to me. Got the camera a bit lower because I'm going to be holding lures up here, so you might not be able to see my head. I've never actually opened a Signature Series lure myself. I usually get prototype of the color before they make them, so I've never seen this. How does this work? Yeah, it pops up. Steezy wooden box, Signature Series. That's the certificate of authentication, I think they call it. It's basically just proving that it's a one of however many, and my one says number AB out of 20, which is my initials. Obviously not one of the 20 that they're gonna put up for sale. If you've watched my films, you know what this color is. Jupiter color. It is pretty spectacular. One of those colors that if you threw it out there and it just plopped into the water with that big silver flash and the full spectrum wing, you know that fish are just going to hit that. You don't even need to swim it. The action's amazing on the Vader, but that thing's going to get absolutely balked. Thanks, fellas. Stoked on that. I am definitely going to throw it though. Some people, I dare say most people who get a Signature Series lure are never going to throw them. They'll put them on the wall or put them in a special cabinet or something. But breezy throws. Let's talk about the Vader. You got a 220 and the 260. I'll throw both of them. I've had big GT hookup on this one and got smoked. And then the lure popped up because I had barbless. Most my GT recently have come on this top lure, the 220. It's a much easier lure to throw all day long. You don't get as spinal tapped. But if you need that bigger presentation, the 260 is the one. I'll cut in some footage of fish and fishing with these lures while I talk about them. The Vader is extremely versatile. I personally like to cast it out there, burn it on the surface, so it just skips for a bit and makes a big commotion. And then I'll go into the classic Japanese, I just always picture Ryota when I want to get my sweeps good. Shout out to Ryota, the best sweeper I've ever witnessed. I try and get the classic tail down, dive the nose under, boom, 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 pop back up with bubble trail, bit of splash on the surface, floating stick back kicks. Anyone who regularly watches my films will know exactly what I do with these, but you can do faster tip down jabs with them and get them to just do shorter tweaks side to side under the water. Obviously you can fast wind and skip it across the surface. You can even almost pop it where you hit it really hard and it just explodes with bubbles under. So like a way harder sweep than you normally would do. Basically it's an extremely versatile lure, and that's why I like it. I can get a feeling for what the fish are thinking and what the time of day is and what the tide is and the moon phase, and based off of all of that, try and do the best presentation possible for the conditions. I will pick this over any other lure in my tackle box. This is what I want to be throwing on my PE8 Plus setup. Moving on, he'll definitely come out of there at some point and get hooks and thrown, and hopefully no snippy first cast or smoking. Let's do the Chieftain next, which is another floating stick. This is a much less tail-weighted floating stick bait that sits more horizontal in the water, and it will do basically a mechanical S swim. In that sense, it's a much easier lure to use than the Vader for someone who's new to floating stick baits. And in choppy conditions, this is actually a very good lure to use. Or if you just don't want to think about it and you want to be in the zone, tripping out, just casting, and you don't want to have to be so cerebral with your working of the lure, you can make mistakes and these won't punish you for it the way that the Vader will. Chieftain comes in 3 sizes, but I might have to hold 2 up at a time. 220, which is the biggest. We've got the 180, which you really could cast that all day and not even feel it. It's such a nice, easy to work light lure. That one's obviously seen a bit of action. And the 150, which is the mini dog. These account for Spanish, GT, tuna, everything under the sun. They're a very user-friendly floating stick bait, which I tend not to use as much as the Vaders just because I like the complexity of the Vader and the versatility. But if you just want to get into topwater fishing, you're going to have a much nicer experience with these than you will the Vaders. By all means, try both. Choppy water, or if you're not wanting to impart too much action into your lure, you want it to do more of the work, Chieftain's the lure for you. They've definitely accounted for some solid fish. Now that the Malosi lures are released all over the world and people are fishing with them, it's been absolutely amazing to see what everyone's catching on these. The boys love seeing your pics of fish you've caught on them, so keep tagging them. It's very cool. I don't have a huge role in Malosi. I help test, I help come up with ideas for lures, probably fish with the lures more than anyone because the boys are stuck making the lures. So I definitely have a role, but I'm kind of like the uncle. I play with the kid and have a great time, and then when all the hard work comes, I just get to leave. So I've got a pretty rad role. I definitely appreciate the role I have. It's exactly what I would want to be doing. But the boys are very close to these lures, and it has been overwhelming for them to see what you guys are catching on them and all the response they've got from around the world. Getting a little sidetracked here. All right, next one, Tyrant. This is the Malosi popper. Very easy to work for a popper. It's not anywhere near as demanding as some, which are just absolutely spinal crushing. This thing gives you a massive pop for not that much effort. It's still a popper. It's still like a sizable popper. You got to be up for it. If it's deep or the water's milky, poppers are amazing. If you really need to bring something up to the surface and you don't want to throw a sinking stick bait, throw a popper. They definitely get attention. I always lean towards a floating stick over a popper for the versatility, but there is definitely a time and a place for a popper. I wish I had thrown a popper more on this last trip with the milky water, which you guys won't have seen this trip yet, but it's coming. Next few films, you'll see what's going on. Many casts for Briggsy, 0 touch, whereas the boys on poppers, big hookups. Moving on, we got the tallow popper, which is the diving popper. This thing is a breeze to use. It's less physically demanding to use than the Tyrant, and in some ways it can be more attractive. There's a huge bubble trail that happens with it. I had a wild Spanish session on this a few years back with the boys. Same as the Tyrant, I don't throw them enough because I love my floating stick so much. So you can put some pretty solid hooks on it, like 5.0 BKK GT Rexes, and she pops a dream. Let's keep going. The Bravos, these fellas, they definitely don't get as much use as they deserve with me. They are like a chieftain that sinks. What I was talking about, the mechanical action and the ease of use, these are even a step further than that, where you cast it out, you just wait a second, sinks a little underwater, hit it, and it will full S shape to you. Or you can fast wind them, burn them to you, and get a lot of attention that way as well. Sinking stick baits I used to use a ton, and I've just kind of grown out of them. Personally, I will always lean towards the top water. I like the hit, it's better for YouTube. We need to get views on YouTube to make money. So if you're throwing a sinking stick bait every single time and you're missing that top water hit, it's not as engaging on YouTube as well. So that's another reason why I don't throw these. But if you just want to hook a fish, a lot of times you're better off chucking a sinking stick bait. We got the 180 and the 150. How sick's that color? I was dubious on the purple, and then when I saw it in person, this is a good color, man. Moving on from Bravo, we'll go down to the Rogues. Or maybe we'll chuck the Crusader in next. This is now even a step further in ease of use. We've got Vaders in difficulty for stick baits. They're the hardest difficulty to use, but the most versatile. Then you have Chieftains, the other floating stick bait, a step easier. Then you have the Bravos, which are very easy to use. And then the ultimate in ease of use, if you just want to hook a bloody fish, mate, chuck a Crusader. This thing will swim like a fish and you don't have to do anything. You could throw for GT, you could throw for tuna, you could throw for mackerel, massive coral trout. I saw on the TFI, one of the fellas there got a huge cod on one of these. Take the guesswork out of it and just get the hook up. It's kind of a sure thing. Righto, next lure is the Rogues. So we got the 120, the 105, and the little 90. I use these quite a bit. I'll chuck them out, open bail arm, let it sink down, or close bail arm. Half the time you get hit on the drop. Otherwise, burn it, full speed up. And then when I break surface, I slow it down a bit and do little jabs with the rod downwards as I wind. It'll do its wobble that it does, but then every once in a while when you do a tweak, it'll either go faster or it'll kick out and pause for a sec and then start again. You can chuck them on the reef flats, you can chuck them for pelagics. If you put a massive hook on that, you could even throw them for G2. Just like maybe one huge assist off the belly or something like that. Cool lure, man. In the Malosi range, a recent entry. These are not the finals. I only have prototypes. And this is the only one that looks kind of like what the final will be. They've come out with medals. I'm sure you guys have seen them in the last few films, and if you went to after, you would have got a first-hand look at them. This color is not final. They ended up going with different colors, but they made medals. 10 gram, oh what? This is the 10 gram. 10 gram, 20 gram, 40 gram, I think 80 and 100 gram, which I don't have those with me. If I'm going for a tuna on my medium setup, I'd prefer to throw like a 40. That would be my go-to size. And then light tackle, 10 grams, amazing, Taylor will smash. 20 is kind of that in-between size where if the visibility is not as good or you need to get a bit more distance, the 20 can also get you that Taylor. Of course, they'll hit bigger as well. But if I'm chasing Taylor or small tuna or something, I want to be on my mini setups and just have a really fun time with screaming drag. They cast a dream on a slow one, swim, like flutter side to side. If you burn them, they spin. It has a sick little flutter on sync. They've by default bored out the holes real big so you can put really strong split rings, and they also by default have strong split rings and really good hooks. I think come with trebles, and I've put singles on these because of my personal preference, but the trebles are BKK and properly strong as well. Yeah, a metal that's rigged correctly from the get-go. Marksman, Malosi Marksman. Righto, big lure's done, metal's done, we're down to the minis. You guys know I love my light tackle. I've thrown a lot of these micros over the last year and been loving it. I find myself targeting species I normally wouldn't target or using techniques I normally wouldn't use, and you re-engage with fishing all over again and learn a new style of fishing. There's so many facets to fishing. You can never conquer it all, I don't think. That's kind of the beauty of it as well. This is the first time I've actively thrown tiny little lures as much as I have, and it's been eye-opening, to say the least. I think we'll start with what has been the most eye-opening for me, which is the Malosi Minion ADF. This thing has now caught me, bluefin trevally, my second and obviously biggest mangrove jack, but it's also caught with upgraded trebles. I put a size up on the treble, a longtail tuna on 8 pound, which for me was probably the highlight of my entire fishing life. One thing that you don't see in that video is that the fish had eaten the lure and the bottom hook went through its mouth at the bottom and through its gill and then hooked in like that. And then the top hook was up in its mouth up here. So that fish was bleeding the whole time. And I think the only reason I landed it is it was injured. That aside, I'm still very impressed that this tiny little minion landed a longtail tuna. Upgraded trebles, 8 pound, 20 pound leader, and this bad boy landed us a longtail. That is wild. Now, on my last trip, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of something else that it hooked. I'll show you the drag screaming, but I won't show you the fish. I don't want to spoil it. Yep. Oh! Oh my God. Oh, I'm going to get spooled. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to get spooled. I'm going up as high as I can. That was massive. This is a monster. Boys! We're dealing with another pelagic here. Amazing lures. They swim a treat. You don't have to think about anything. Straight wind them, tweak them, do whatever you want. They swim. Sick little minnow. And of course it has its baby brother, which I throw a lot less, just because I like the bigger presentation. They're both sick lures. Just for what I'm doing in the saltwater, I'm usually on the big dog. But maybe if you're going for bass or some other freshwater species, or you just want to have fun on really light tackle, the 65F would be the go. I've even heard calls for smaller ones. People want 50. So each to their own. Briggsy likes the 80. 65s definitely has its place as well, and potentially in the future there'll be all kinds of sizes. Minion, special little diver. All right, next we'll do the Atom popper. I haven't thrown this very much at all. Like honestly, barely ever. I had a barracuda come up on it after like 10 minutes of throwing it once, and I hooked a solid kingfish on a prototype of these back in the day when they first started prototyping them. I wonder if you guys remember that film. I'll put a little bit of the footage in here. Little popper, big Taylor. That's my idea. Oh my God, yep. Big on. Oh no. Kingfish, I got a kingy. I've got a kingy. Oh, no wonder he's going so hard. I've been watching what everyone's catching on these from around the world, and it's sick to see them get a lot of action. Breezy hasn't had that much action on them yet, but that's because I haven't thrown them. I'm gonna try to do it more, I think up on the flats, popper could go off. I don't really have the zone for it. You guys are ripping on the Adams. Briggsy needs to catch up. I'm gonna throw these a bit more this year and see what I can get on them. Last of the Malosi lures, but not least, is the Malosi Echo. I throw the 80F a lot more than I throw the 65. I kind of prefer to miss smaller fish and not be interested and get that big hookup. They're both super easy to use. Actually, to be honest, they're probably the easiest walk the dog I've ever used. They have a pretty wide profile, which I quite like. It's a bit more presence, and I think a bigger fish will pay attention to that. I don't mind upgrading the tail to assist if I don't think I'm gonna hook anything toothy or too big. But if I'm just going for maybe little reefies or whiting or something like this, the dangleberry at the back is quite nice. It definitely adds a secondary motion to the lure. So as the lure tweaks one way than the other, this is adding like a secondary movement. It just gives them something to kind of nib at as well. Half the time they literally bite the hook because they think it's part of the fish. Love the little Echo. Been having a ball with these, as you guys have seen, and Canada got a really solid whiting on one of these in the testing phase, which I was very proud of. That rounds it up for the Malosies. I've also been using bait junkies, less lately, just because the conditions haven't suited beach fishing. But as you saw in a recent film, my last film, me and Cabby and Kayla got among the plastics and had a ball on them. You would have seen in that film, I'm pretty sure we went through them, but I'll go through them again. This is the biggest I'll go off the beach gutters, 3.2 bait junkie minnow. I'll pull one out just so you can get a look at it. This color in particular is quite good. It's the motor oil UV. Oh, either motor oil UV or the oil flash UV. I like both of those. These ones, I'll definitely go a bigger jig head. I could go up to 1/4. Don't push it too much further than that, but even these I use a 1/6 and a 1/0. That's that size. I'll pull out the little brother of them, which a lot of times when I'm hooking brim and whiting and stuff like that, it's on this smaller size, 2.5 inch, olive UV. Again, a greeny kind of a color, which I think fish really like. I'll usually run up to a 1/6 ounce jig head. I don't usually go any bigger than that, and I'll go anywhere down to 1/16 or something super light. And then a recent addition to what I've been using for plackies is the wave tail minnow, which you would have seen in that last film. So I'd usually go paddle tail, but these things, when we tried them, they were absolutely killer. You didn't need to impart that much action into them to get a bite. I actually found that with both, to be honest. The paddle tail as well, if you just used a light enough jig head, they would flutter around down there and you get plenty of hookups. Vertically jigging off the rocks, small jig head, 1/16, 1/12, something like that. Jiggy, big hookups. It was really fun. And that's it, that's a rundown of my lures. If you ever want to know what I'm using, please just read the description of the film. I always list the gear, I even put links to the gear. So in theory, everything you need to know is in each film individually, and it says what gear I use in the description of the film. The next film I want to do like this is actually going to be on being a YouTuber and GoPro settings and stuff like that. So fishing YouTuber film, which I get asked a lot. I'm happy to help however I can. I'm obviously not the most knowledgeable guy in the whole world or anything like that, but hopefully some of the info that I have is useful to you. How about we end on the signature series? Let's get that bad boy back out. That's a good way to end. We'll end it there, eh? Oh, I'm excited to throw that again. I love the silver bottom on these ones. Cheers, fellas. Have a good one. You.